at 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting order. Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, well, we have the minutes from last month did not get sent correctly, so we're going to rework that, and Diana will set that out, and then we'll worry about voting in September minutes and October minutes together in November. So apologize, just a technical glitch on the computer issue, and we'll get that fixed another day.
Senior moment.
Yeah. So other issues on old business. We want to talk about the bid or the proposal to quote for the banners. The proper banner, not the grommet selections down below. So.
Let me talk about it.
Yeah, I have. There they are. I can put it up on the screen.
There we go. Yes. So that would just be for the banner itself, and I don't think that includes hardware. But anyway, I wanted to get that through and then go to the council meeting on Thursday for approval to get the forward momentum, keep it going, and get the banners purchased. Then we can work out the details of the drop downs of what they need to say and where they need to go, and then also the nitty gritty details about the sponsorship drop downs that will also come later. Those can happen, and but I just wanted to kind of keep moving forward with getting the banners, possibly getting them in place, to commingle in with the Daughters of American Revolution banners and any Christmas and Clayton type banners we have. So, but it doesn't. We don't have a quorum here today.
We have a very basic quorum for planning. We do not have a quorum for BZA at all. So BZA is not officially able to meet today or making a decision. So.
But anyway, so in that case, then just if you guys are all okay with the design and you're okay with that pricing, basically that's just the pricing removed from the other quote that had the full onslaught of everything we were going to be doing. They're not really charging us for like how many different drop downs we have. It might say something different. They don't care about that. So
I noticed they have that banner advertising flat $12.
Yeah.
So they're throwing in.
Yeah, I mean they're a very nice company. The guys are really great to work with. So I just wanted to get the main banner approved and just send it through to the town council so we can vote on it Thursday.
Will these banners already have the bottom grommets?
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll have sleeves for the two pieces of hardware that suspend it, hold in place, and I think those are like spring held, so they'll stay rigid unless there's a huge wind, and then they kind of give. And then they'll have two grommets at the bottom that are lined with either some kind of brass or tin kind of grommet, and then the drop downs will be like these big key ring loops made of metal that will go in there, and they'll hold the next drop down, and then those will also have grommets in them that will hold the sponsorship drop down. They'll flap in the wind, but that's what they're made to do. So they're all made to kind of flap around in the wind. So.
All right, any other questions on those?
You know what? I will come up with something. My son's really good with woodworking. I can have him make a big, like, marble.
Okay, you could just stand up there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. motion?
Yeah, if we wanted to move forward with approving to bring this to the town council on Thursday.
I make a motion, we send it to the town council for approval.
I'll second
Okay,
that motion.
got a first motion, got a second motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right. Very good. I don't know how much we want to get into our zoning book fixes right now with the sparse attendance today. Can, if we want to talk about some of those things, or we can postpone that, table it until we have more people here. Obviously, last month we dealt with the agriculture zone and some of the changes we wanted to make there. I don't know if anybody here had some stark new revelation that hit them this month on agriculture stuff. I know a big thing that I talked to a couple of my agriculture friends about was that more information about that concentrated animal feed operation, and just kind of confirmed all of my suspicions about how that would probably not be something we would want in the town limits. So if everybody's okay with amending the agricultural zone to not allow a CAFO, but everything else.
Everything else we're good with?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to talk about the R1 and R4. When I put these next to each other, R1 and R4, they were super similar, right? There's like very little difference. A couple of differences were the lot width and how big of a primary structure or area you have. Technically, we don't have anybody in town zoned R1 at all. We have one structure that is in a property zoned R4, and that's the apartments on the south in the town as you head out towards the wastewater treatment plant. So I think that's kind of, to me, a no-brainer just to merge those two and make, some small adjustments to the language in the new one that we would get, but that's just my opinion.
So would we merge our R1 to R4, or would we merge R4? In other words, what clarification would we set this as? As the R1 clarification, or is it the R4, R1 zone? Sorry, not clarification.
Well, if we make the new one R4, then we're going to not have an R1. So now we could move everything up, so R2 could then become R1, R3 could be R2. This could become R3. It doesn't,
You don't have a.
that doesn't matter at all. So I could care less either way. I was just thinking to make it easier, this could be the new R1, merging R1 and R4, then be R1 in the future. But we can
That'd be fine with me.
dig into the minutia of that next month when we have more people here to kind of figure out, well, what do we want the new R1 to say.
Okay.
Another thing, I was kind of marveling this last month over all of the different planning commissions and communities with big planning changes in the news. There have been several court cases recently in the last 10 years here in Indiana. There have been lots of news stories about data centers and wind farms and you name it. There's all these things that are, and the planning commissions are kind of at the target of everybody who's talking about this. So I just thought it'd be good for us to just kind of review some information about planning commissions and board of zoning appeals and what we are really here for. We have rules and procedures. We have rules and procedures about the planning commission, and then we have rules and procedures on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and these we approved. We renewed the approval of them last year. Now, I had been told by one person that both the rules and procedures for PC and BZA had to be renewed every year. The American Planning Association does not recommend that or require that. They say you only need to reapprove the rules and procedures when you have a change. So, just everybody should be familiar with the rules and procedures. So, if something big happens here and we have to, make decisions on something, and then all of a sudden the news is reporting on decision that we've made, that we know that we've met our rules and procedures kind of issue. I know a big one in the news recently was the lawsuit against Brownsburg. They annexed 1,400 acres to do a development, and then got sued by the residents there. It was not a voluntary annexation, and the residents won both the initial court case and the first appellate case, because both judges felt that Brownsburg did not follow the rules and procedures. That they didn't follow the statute at the state level. They didn't follow their own rules and procedures moving forward with that annexation. So, same kind of thing down in Bloomington. There's a court case right now. The judge in the first case already ruled against Bloomington. Bloomington has appealed to the next appellate court. Most people that, when I research that, looks like all the lawyers are saying, yeah, Brownsburg or Bloomington's probably not going to win that appellate appeal either. But because again, rules and procedures, they didn't follow that. So some of the things to kind of go back on is, we have our own rules and procedures that we pass here. The state level has basically the Standard State Zoning Enabling Act of 1926 that started this whole process to begin with. Is that we as the Clayton Planning and Zoning Advisory Board and the BZA function under the rules that the state of Indiana has published, say we have the authority to do this kind of stuff. And I know we've been challenged a few different times since I've been here in Clayton on, well, Clayton doesn't actually have the authority to do this or whatever. But we do. We have, a state law that says we are allowed to have this Planning and Zoning Advisory Board and the BZA. We're allowed to have our own rules and procedures and follow those. So it's just important to know, we're not just out here winging it. We actually are following some rules.
You want the two items that you sent to us, you want those posted on the website?
Oh yeah, that would be good.
Under the town plan?
Yeah, and they're not very long. Like the BZA rules and procedures is just 16 pages. Clayton Planning Commission is 16 pages. So, but it just goes through the different membership. Where we get the people that are here on the board and that kind of stuff. Throughout. And if we ever, come up with changes to our rules and procedures, we can then re-adopt them and re-vote that we've made some amendments. But at this point in time, those are our legal rules and procedures for Clayton. So, and as urban sprawl continues to move this way with the other things happening right now, we're going to be in the middle of some of that in the next 5-10 years.
Is there anything that you can think of that we should get ahead of as far as having something in place prior to it confronting the board.
Well, and that, one of the reasons that I'm wanting to really pick through all of the zoning rules and making sure that it complies with our comprehensive plan, and that, we've cleaned up all the errors, like the mistake that we have in there where it says everybody has to be hooked up to the city water. We don't have city water, so we can't.
Way behind on that.
Right, we can't follow that rule. And we can't enforce that. So those are definitely some things that we have to make sure that we're working on as like we are. And, as we move forward, we're gonna get some input from Mary Strotter over at Banning Engineering. We're also, hopefully can move forward with that technical advisory committee idea that we talked about a couple months ago. Just getting some input from professionals in the construction or utilities industries on what we're doing here. Good question. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think, again, since we have kind of our low numbers today, we'll go ahead and adjourn. And you have something else?
I didn't have a question about that, but I didn't know if anybody had any information. There's signs along 40 going into Plainfield on the south side. They're having a hearing. Does anybody know what those are about? I don't know if it's about future annexation or.
Like a public notice type
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Type thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't, but it probably has something to do with
Everything.
right of way.
Well, I know there was a neighborhood that was going to be going in. The developer wanted to develop the farmland that's across from like this side of the Eagles area, but on that south side of the road. But I believe last I heard that the planning commission turned that developer down. But they also did have a big thing in the planning meeting in Plainfield about the state is going to redo US 40 through Plainfield.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to take till 2029.
Oh my gosh.
They're going to, so they're doing a major renovation from Vestal Road, all the way over to Dan Jones.
That's not going to affect the downtown area. They just redid.
I don't know how many years ago it was. It dug down probably 5 feet.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm.
That ain't been that many years ago.
And they're planning on this pretty major renovation. It's the state of Indiana. It's not Plainfield. So that's one of the reasons Plainfield wanted to talk about it, because they wanted people that don't play Plainfield. We didn't come up with this. That's a U.S. highway, so it's the state of Indiana is doing this work. So
Gives us something to look for.
yeah.
The other question was, where are we at in the annexation talks with the farmers? Are we it was a lot, like I talked about a lot, we had meetings, and now it's like a back burner. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know my personal conversations with Mr. Brenneman, he's like, he reiterated to me multiple times in our conversations, he's not opposed to annexation, but he needs to know the why and what services the town of Cleveland is providing
He's going to benefit
with
from it.
that, right? So, my thought is we need to get our zoning book fixed, get all the errors out of it, and have a good plan, vision moving forward before we revisit the annexation idea. Because that's
Makes sense.
where he's hung up is,
Why should I?
and he's hearing, well, we're just blocking Plainfield. That's what he hears when he.
Not all.
Right. And so we need to have a reason for doing this. It's not about just batting against Plainfield coming this way. To have why is Clayton wanting to annex this property and that property? What are we going to do for those property owners now that they've become? And which that does bring up a good point. I forgot to talk about this with this group because last month it was handed to me just before our town council meeting. So there's a petition going on in Liberty Township, and a registered voter who lives in Liberty Township has started this for the purpose of, and under Indiana Code 36-1.5, which is called government modernization. So he wants the town board here in Clayton to merge with the township board as one government entity. So that would basically make all of Liberty Township an incorporated town, which isn't really a decision that the planning commission has to be involved in, but it will affect you because if that were to occur, that would all of a sudden mean the planning commission is in charge of planning for the entirety of Liberty Township. So zoning rules would apply to not only houses and where we're at right now, but everything. So the warehouses, the farmers, all of that, every place in Liberty Township would become incorporated. We'd suddenly be in charge of all the roads in Liberty Township. So our inventory would grow substantially. That now we have to worry about our population would jump up to about 7,000 people from like the mayor, 990. So it's just kind of one of those things. Now the petition has to go through multiple steps before it would ever get to that point of actually being passed. So it has to go, once they get all the signatures that they need, which according to Indiana Code 36-1.5 following, they have to get 5% of the registered voters that live in Liberty Township to sign this petition, which according to the voter registration office, that's about 238 people have to be on this petition. So then they bring that petition to Jenny, our clerk treasurer, and she would then give them a receipt, take the petition to voter registration office, as well as sending a copy to the Secretary of State. And then they would go to work on verifying are all 238 signatures on this petition registered voters that live in Liberty Township. So you can't, they had that petition, back in the spring about the annexation bill. They wanted to block it. They got 700 signatures or something like that on there. But they got signatures from all kinds of people, not just people that live here. But this petition would have to have signatures that live in Liberty Township, either Clayton residents or outside of Clayton. And then once they've gone through that and they certify that, yes, all 238 people are registered voters, they would bring it back to Jenny and say, it's verified that these are all certified voters. So then she would present it back to us as the town council, as well as giving it to the township board, the 3 members of the township board, and say this has been verified. And then the town would have 3 options. Option number 1 is to vote and say, we reject this petition. We don't want to have anything to do with doing this. But we have to write a resolution stating we reject the petition. Not sure why that, I'm not sure why you can't just say, we're not going to do this. You actually have to do a formal resolution saying we reject the petition. Number 2 would be, we can write a resolution that would say we accept this petition as it's written and we're going to move forward with the planning logistics stages of figuring out how to reorganize our 2 government bodies. If that happens, essentially the government bodies that exist, the town council and the township board, would be terminated. They would no longer exist, and whatever new one we came up with, we would replace that. So whether it's another 5-member board or a 7-member board or a mayor or whatever. So the new body, the new government entity would take over. It would be brand new. So whatever takes that place would be established of, 2026 going forward. So the previous town of Clayton, that's been here since 1929 as an incorporated town, would no longer exist. Yeah, that one. Oh, wait. So that's number 2. Then number 3, the other option would be we can write a resolution where say we like the idea, but we want to come up with our own plan. And so we would develop our own agreement. And that agreement, we could include other political subdivisions. So we could then reach out, since Mill Creek really technically takes up, space in this township and Franklin Township. So we could merge with more than one government body or whatever we want. So that would be the third option. Same kind of process of it would dissolve what was currently here and replace it with the other. So that's.
So would it be a good thing for the town of Clayton to do that, to merge with them?
I don't know if it would be a good thing. I know it would definitely be very different, and it would mean a whole lot of work for at least the first 5 to 6 years, trying to figure out all the logistics of fixing. I mean, then, because we would suddenly be in charge of every pothole in Liberty Township. We would be in charge of every drainage ditch, every, everybody with septic systems. Are we going to then start expanding our wastewater treatment plant to every corner of Liberty Township? Or are we going to, just figure out a way to get municipal water to everybody? Or a police department. I mean, now we've got, instead of 990 residents, we've got 7,000. So do we need a police department for that? So those are things that you would have to go to work on to fix, and that would happen day one. There's not a grace period according to the law.
Yeah.
It's a
The logistic and infrastructure.
Yeah, right. It would go. Now, I'm not sure that the Hendricks County, parts of it, that help with the infrastructure, I'm not sure that they would necessarily abandon us immediately. We could probably ask for help in the transition, but that would be within their right to say, it's yours now, so you fix it. Every bridge, it would suddenly be, our responsibility to take care of that stuff. That would be huge.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions, thoughts, comments? Are we good in the order?
I had.
Okay.
Is there a way? How do we expedite the UDO work to get ourselves in a position, as we talked about, for annexation quicker?
One thing with me, I asked for the town to create a budget for planning for next year to the tune of $25,000, $25,000, I think. So we could pay Mary Straughter, who's a certified planner, AICP planner, just to do it. And then she could come and present it to us. Here's the new UDO that I've fixed, all these issues, made it comply with state law.
But at a monthly meeting, we still have to whittle through her changes and approve those, right? Is there a way to have more than, I don't want to say I'm going to do this, but a weekly meeting to work through these, and then at the monthly meeting to present what got accomplished at the weeklies.
Well,
and move on.
It would be be similar to what she did with just the comments. So in that Excel spreadsheet, she gave us that 600 comments.
Mhm.
She could do the same thing with, here's what I changed, and which you would need that because you'd want to know when you're passing the new or adopting the new UDO, what all actually got changed in it. So she would, work with us, maybe in a couple of meetings in a row saying, we're gonna fix this to kind of customize it to our comprehensive plan, because that's number one is the thing that she talked about is our UDO isn't nicely tied into our comprehensive plan that we just adopted.
Right.
And that's the comprehensive plan is kind of your foundational document, then the UDO builds on top of that. So she would come in and say, here's what I see. Here's what your comprehensive plan talks about. Here's how the UDO can fit with that. And then she would build on that. And things that we've given her feedback on, we don't want an open space ordinance. We don't want, we want R1 and R4 to be merged. We want, we give her those feedbacks. And she just would do that based on her experience as a planner with the rules and regulations and training that she's had to do that. So then she would present that to us, and we would have, whatever, a month or maybe 2 months to look through her little Excel spreadsheet and with the UDO next to it and say, okay, these are all the changes. So it would give you that.
Her work basically replaces the work that like some kind of subcommittee would do.
Right.
And we're paying her, and then.
Yeah, and then we could agree to all of it, or we could say, oh wait, she said we can't have RVs in the town at all, and we want RVs. So we, go back to the drawing table and say, hey, put RVs back in town, or whatever it is. We talked about satellite dishes at one point, a couple months ago. So those would be things that we would make sure we would want to pick up on, and then make sure that it's customized to Clayton. Because the problem with the UDO that we have, which I didn't know this at first, but it was actually Pittsburgh's UDO, and somebody at the consulting firm just changed the name.
Right.
That here's your.
And I bet
that was back in.
I bet that's happened.
Oh yeah.
Throughout
I'm sure
Indiana and the U.S. It's happened.
I'm sure it has.
Over and over again.
And it was easy, to do. We paid this consulting firm. I think it was Kaiser.
Okay.
And that was back in 2008. Was what I was told when we did that. So, and then everybody here adopted it. So okay, great. They put it on a shelf, and then it's been something that we've just used.
We've got this and that's.
But now we're actually, digging into it, going, oh wait, it says everybody needs to be hooked up to city water. So we have to fix that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions then? All right. Let's call it a day, and we'll see everybody back in November. Meeting adjourned at 6:33.